just arrived in Brest. The boats are in the basin behind me and then just along the quay on the other side. It's rapidly getting towards showtime, and I know you've all asked me quite a few questions about how I'm feeling before this first race, so I'm just going to answer a few of them. How were your training sessions? They were incredible. We decided to go to Portugal to just make the most of the stable weathering conditions there, because I knew I needed to pack a lot into a small amount of time. They went really well. I worked with some great coaches, but also the boat team did some really great preparation. So I would have liked more time, but the training sessions were really good. When's my first race? Well, it starts on Sunday from Brest. It's the Bermudes 1000. The course at the moment is supposed to be from Brest to the Fastnet Rock, down to a waypoint off Finisterre and then back to Brest. But with the current weather situation, they might change the course a little bit. We'll find out later on in the week. You have worked and prepared hard. Do you feel ready? Gosh, I mean, it's quite difficult for me. I mean, the boat feels great. The shore team, the technical team have done such a fantastic job on preparing the boat. I feel a lot more ready than I did at the beginning of the year, but you know, this is the first time that I will be lining up against the fleet in my new boat. I think all things considered, I'm ready, but I'd like to be more ready. Is weather routing part of each race build-up? Yes, the weather, understanding the current weather situation and how the weather is going to change over the duration of the race is really important. So I started looking at the weather last weekend, just trying to get a really zoomed out picture of the weather systems and what I might expect them to do and how that might affect conditions on the course. Every day I run routings. I'm looking for similarities or differences across the routings to really kind of try and embed that picture in my head, but it's a massive part of my preparation. Do you have a good chance to win a podium finish in your forthcoming race? Thank you for your incredible confidence in me. I think on paper, no, because there are a lot of new generation 2020 generation boats here, and so on paper, you know, I'm not as quick as they are, and that tends to show up in the shorter races. The newer boats tend to do better, and I think really for me this race is about kind of benchmarking where I am in the fleet, so I know where I need to progress from. How excited are you for the race 0 to 100? Okay, I'm 85 excited, 15% terrified. What are your goals for this racing season? So this racing season we are taking the boat in its current configuration. We know it's an incredibly competitive boat. It holds the course record for the Vendée, and our goal really is to try and sail the boat to its full potential in the current configuration with small foils this season, and so for me that means kind of working my way up through the fleet, learning as much as I can, working with coaches, and I would really hope that equates to a top 10 position in the Route de Rome at the end of the year. How important is it to push the boat hard to learn its boundaries in the upcoming races versus qualifying for the big race? Do you have spare races so you can do both? It's a really good question, and actually qualification for the Vendée is tougher than ever. There are 40 places available for the next Vendée, but 13 of those are going to new build boats, and there are currently 16 new build projects in the offing. And then there's one wild card that will be given at the discretion of the committee. So effectively there's 26 places available for older boats like mine. And we think what's going to happen is the qualification will come down to cumulative mileage. So miles raced in IMOCA Globe races and races finished, which means finishing races is important, which means, you know, there is a higher penalty to risk taking than just not being able to finish a race. It's kind of not being able to qualify for the Vendée as well. But in a way, this kind of mirrors the philosophy of the Vendée itself. It's a 3-month race. You know, you've got to think a short-term risk to give you a short-term advantage? Is that going to put you out of the race itself? So, I think there is a balance to be had. But that said, I want to sail the boat hard. I want to push it hard. But I do need to always have my eye on the big goal. How are you coping with the speed and your response to much faster actions? When I first really started pushing the boat, I kind of was a little bit apprehensive about how I might adjust to the new speed and the new feeling of sailing this boat, because it is a lot more aggressive. But I think the last 6 weeks have given me a huge amount of confidence, and actually it kind of feels normal to be doing sort of mid-20 knots speed now, and I have adapted to it much quicker than I imagined, and it sort of feels like normal now. What are the development items you hope to work out this week on the race? I think really this week I'm going to be looking at the performance of the other similar boats to me, and then kind of benchmarking how I'm doing, how well the boat's pointing, the angles that I'm sailing, how fast I'm going against those boats, and that's going to give me a really good framework to build on for competition later in the year. So that's looking at Group Prizeman, Giancarlo, it's looking at Damien Sagan in Group Apicil, and Benjamin Detroux, and Fabrice Amadeo. They're all in similar boats to me, so that's what I guess I'm going to be working on the most over this race. Is there one particular item you've added to your personal kit this time around? So actually the most significant thing that we have changed on board, which kind of is my personal kit, is an upgrade of our EPIRBs, so our emergency position indicating radio beacons. So these are the distress beacons. If I am anywhere in the world and I need rescuing, I can set one of these off. Now, previously, the way that they worked was you had a kind of main signal that went out via satellite to maritime rescue coordination centres, and that would give your position and who you were and the fact you're in trouble. And then there was a secondary signal that was emitted on a different radio frequency that allowed search and rescue vessels to home in on you once they got to the search area. Now, previously, that signal was only detectable by aircraft and search and rescue vessels. However, working with our safety partners, McMurdo, we've now upgraded my EPIRBs so that the homing signal is AIS, the Automatic Identification System, which is a VHF channel, and most leisure vessels, all commercial vessels, have access to this channel, which means that if you are in an emergency situation, the amount of people who may be able to home in on your signal and find you and help the rescue effort is a lot more, and that's particularly poignant for us in our fleet because we're going to really remote areas and the chances are we're going to be the first on scene at any given time. So I'm really happy to have those new AIS EPIRBs from McMurdo on board. How do you manage fatigue on these long routes? So interestingly, this race at around 1,200 miles is a short race for us. It's going to be between maybe four and 5 days, I think. And so, during that time, I will probably not get a lot of sleep. I'll be kind of trying to just get enough sleep to perform, but not looking to bank sleep or have longer sleeps as I might on the kind of 1,000+ mile routes. And one of the key things for me is in the next couple of days, while the team are preparing the boat, while we're getting ready for the race, I need to try and rest as much as possible, eat well, sleep well, go into it well rested, and that will help me manage fatigue. Can you give any advice to short course racing and tactics? So I think short course racing, something I also love, but it's very much about kind of making sure that you're locked into your environment and you're aware of everything that's going on around you on the water. So I think the best piece of kit you can possibly have on the boat is a compass, because that's going to help you identify wind shifts. And then just keep looking at the compass, keep looking at your boat speed, and then look at the boats around you, look at what they're doing, and think about where you want to be in relation to them on the course to gain an advantage. So use your compass and eyes out of the boat. How much of a challenge was the transition to sailing a foiling boat? Initially, I felt like it was going to be a really big transition, kind of lots of different things to manage, another dynamic. But as I've got to learn the boat, it's been reassuringly familiar. I mean, there are some crazy things which kind of it took me quite a while to get my head around. For example, once you start going over 20 knots, your keel starts giving you negative lift. So it's effectively acting in the same way the foil is, lifting you out of the water, so that you need to drop your keel when you start going really fast. And it took me a while to get my head around that. But other than that, it's all sailing and it's all good. How do you prepare for the unidentified floating debris you sailors encounter from time to time, especially at night? Is it pure luck to avoid them, or do you have radar to help, or are you alerted in advance of lost containers from freight ships? It's difficult, and actually, hitting floating debris is a concern to all of us, but it's one of those things that I kind of have to just wrap up a little bit and not focus on too much, because I think it would just cause an incredible amount of anxiety if you focused on it and there's not so much that is in your control. We do, of course, use technology to help. So on board I have radar and AIS and all sorts of alarms. The race committee will alert us if there is known debris in the water around us. There are some various kind of sources of information on the internet where you can tell, for example, where weather buoys are and that sort of thing. And then as a class, we're actively working with various sectors of technology to try and develop a forward-facing system that allows us to see debris in the water. This is called Oscar. Several boats used it in the last Vendée. We're going to kind of have a look at how that develops and make a decision closer to the Nero Vendée as to whether it's a system that would be right for us. How did you deal with the pressure of self-funding when you started? I think it's fair to say that finding the funding to do something like this is the hardest part of it and the most stressful. And I did start with nothing. I got myself a bank loan, which was enough to cover a couple of months of charter, and then I started a crowdfund, which covered a couple more months. But the costs around managing a boat like this are huge, and literally every day there was kind of a hungry beast that needed to be fed. And it was unbelievably stressful because, I desperately wanted to make it. It mattered to me so much whether I made it or not, and I carried a lot of responsibility on my shoulders for everyone who had helped and donated and supported me. But I think the way I managed the pressure was just focusing on the next thing that needed to be done, only focusing on the next thing that needed to be done, and making sure that I did something positive every day to get me towards that goal. And I knew it was what I wanted to do. I knew why I was doing it. There was this really clear end goal that was something I definitely wanted, and that kind of gave me the ability to cope with the stress. How would one get involved with an AMOCA team? I think just kind of keep an eye on everybody's social media for opportunities. The other thing you could do is subscribe to the newsletter Tip and Shaft, which quite often has job opportunities in it. There are various, we sometimes advertise for the roles that we're looking for. Just kind of keep looking, keep talking to people, keep your eyes open. This is from Ari Husela. He says, see you on June the 3rd, which is brilliant. So on June the 3rd, we are having the Vendée 2020 Skippers Parade in Les Sables d'Olonne. All of the Vendée 2020 skippers will be there. We're doing a parade through town. It's kind of our final opportunity to celebrate the race because we never got to do that because of COVID lockdowns. Scariest experience. To be fair, so far on this new boat, I don't think I've had a full-on scary experience. I mean, I've been kind of anxious about speed and about kind of coping with things, but not really ever scared. However, I'm sure there will be scary ones to come. How do you push through your fear? So I kind of have a very particular way of managing fear and anxiety, and that is through kind of a fairly robust self-talk, which I actually do out loud. And so if something is frightening me or worrying me, then I kind of talk about it. I say to myself, what is it? What are you scared of? Why are you scared of that? You know, is it rational to be scared of that? What training, what preparation, what knowledge do you have that will mitigate against the worst happening? And I kind of just talk my way through each of the situations, and in that way it kind of becomes manageable, but also it's a way for me to really kind of take the emotion out of any risk assessments and be sure that I am doing the right thing. Tips for getting started with offshore racing. I think just kind of keep an eye on as many notice boards as you can. So many of the offshore racing organisers like JOG and RORC and the Royal Southampton and the Royal Western in Plymouth, they have crew notice boards. So if people are looking for crew, they'll put a message up there. But the other thing is go down to marinas, have a chat with people, and I would say be useful. So if somebody is, needs a hand the day before preparing the boat, go and be the person that helps, because it will make people see how valuable you are as a crew and how willing you are as a crew, and hopefully that will lead to more opportunities. Do you have contempt for normal daily boaters? What sort of a question is that? Absolutely not. No. I love sailing. I mean, I really, really love sailing. All sorts of sailing. I mean, and actually, no contempt. Everyone's out having a good time on the water, enjoying themselves. It's all valid. And actually, if I'm not on that boat, I'm probably on another boat, and I don't particularly care what sort of boat it is. It's all sailing, and it's all brilliant. What tips do you have for a 30-year-old wanting to start with ocean racing? So it is difficult. Finding a crew to get involved with is the difficult thing for ocean racing, and especially now because I think lots more people on the ocean and offshore racing are choosing to go double-handed, so there are less crew opportunities available. But you could start out by actually maybe doing deliveries. So, for example, transatlantic deliveries or deliveries around Europe or to the Med, because that will get you the ocean experience and the ocean miles, which might kind of put you in front of the queue above someone else who is going for the same crew position as you in a race. As a solo sailor, I'm curious on Pip's personal coping mechanisms for isolation. I actually don't have a problem with isolation. I'm really lucky. I think because I was really sure that I wanted to solo sail, but also, I've made a way through a career with no funding, which means that I've never really had the luxury of satellite communications on board. So it's normal for me not to be in contact with people. So I'm kind of at peace with it. And I guess I don't feel lonely because I've chosen to be on my own. I'm choosing to challenge myself in that way, and I get a lot out of it. I enjoy it, and I know that when I come back to the shore, my friends and family will be there, and that's kind of what matters to me. But I think, it is about just reminding yourself that difficult times are only moments in time, and they will change and they will get better. And also, you deliberately put yourself in that situation. You chose that challenge. You decided to be in the ocean on your own. And so you need to embrace everything that goes with that. Favourite freeze-dried meal? At the moment, I'm really enjoying a pumpkin and sweet corn casserole from Real Termat, fish and potato from Expedition, and also there's a really great Thai green curry with cashew nuts from Tent Meals, and they're probably my top 3. Will you change foils for the route to Rum? No, this year we're doing a whole year with our existing foils. We're hoping to change the foils early 2023 for something a bit bigger. Do you love to eat plant-based? So my diet is pescatarian, and actually I've been pescatarian since I was 15 probably, and I do eat a lot of plant-based foods, but I kind of tend to prefer things like lentils and beans as opposed to, I guess, other kind of meat alternatives. But yeah, I just like the taste of vegetables, and that's why I eat them. How about Vendée Globe? Dear Pip, I want you to be number 1. Thank you.